Mike Heller, 97.3 The Game in Milwaukee, joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Mike involved, of course, in covering the Packers as well. Mike, let's start with the Wisconsin Badgers, but also the Big Ten. What has been, have things settled down, or is it still kind of the unknown of what else they're going to do? Is it a lot of chatter after the USC, UCLA additions?
Yeah, I think I do think that it has settled down. I think that a lot of people felt like there was going to be immediate reaction and movement from the Big 12, Pac-12, and ACC following the announcement of USC and UCLA coming to the Big Ten in 2024. And I do think that the storyline that many people have been on that I would agree with is that Notre Dame is the next biggest domino that has to fall. And when it does, then others, now it might get out of order, but I do think Notre Dame, from a Big Ten perspective, I think Notre Dame is either next in or to confirm again that they don't need it. And then I think that there will be more movement. But I'm a little surprised that there wasn't something immediately afterwards, and it really has now calmed down and settled.
Yeah, Mike, if everybody's going to sit around and wait on Notre Dame, they could be in for a long haul. They might want to pack supplies for that because –
Yeah, I agree with you. They've been waiting for decades on Notre Dame to make a conference call, and they won't do it.
Yeah. I mean, what impetus would Notre Dame have to join it if no one makes them?
Well, I think the difference is money. And Notre Dame is I think Notre Dame is privately put out there that money's not their deciding factor. But it is significant, the amount of money they get from NBC as opposed to the shared revenue that the Big Ten is putting out there with the addition of USC and UCLA. It is not, it is not a decimal point. It's a comma and a couple of spots. So it's a big deal. But if money is not the factor, then they won't do it.
Mike, how has the opinion, do you feel like, evolved around Commissioner Kevin Warren? I mean, that was a guy who took the podium a couple of days ago. There was a far cry from the same guy people were talking about a couple of years ago during, COVID decision-making. Pretty amazing turnaround. I'm sure some people saw this coming, and that's why he got the job to begin with. But have you heard the opinions change around Big Ten country involving Kevin Warren?
Not from the people that matter, to be fair. The people that don't matter, and some of the media reaction when they admittedly screwed up the COVID. But I mean, for heaven's sakes, who didn't? Right. From government standpoints, from medical, yeah, the Big Ten and Kevin Warren did not put their best foot forward on it. But I think we could come up with tons of examples that those who didn't. But to answer your question, the people that matter, Chris McIntosh, the AD at Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez, the former AD, the other bosses, the other people that really mattered in the Big Ten, they knew what Kevin Warren was and would be. There was a stumble. And I think people expected, the people that matter, again, expected that there could be some missteps early, but that Kevin Warren would be strong and powerful in his role as they went forward. And he had the very unenviable task of following Jim Delaney. And Delaney was the biggest power broker in college athletics for a very long time. And Kevin Warren's he has grown into his position. And now I think that the people see what he is, and he is a very good conference commissioner.
You being there where you are, Mike, are you the one that actually hosts your show from like your own restaurant or something?
No, well, I do have a wine bar in north of Madison.
Yeah, that's right.
During COVID, I did the show from there. But yeah, so no, I do the show either from the office or the studio office, but not from the bar anymore. Although I'd love for them to say, hey, let's go ahead and do it. I'd be happy to.
I always thought, I remember you brought that up, and it probably was during COVID or right after that or sometime during that time as well. Wisconsin football has been very steady. Take out the COVID year for a lot of people, but they've been incredibly steady. A lot of double-digit wins, in fact, a ton of them since 2003. Where are they, in your opinion? What the expectations? Do they feel like they can get to that next level with all the power teams that are right now in the East?
Yeah, I think there are two ways to look at it. Wisconsin, I would agree, has been very successful. They're at I wouldn't call it a crossroads, but they do have changes that they brought into the program this year with Bobby Ingram, the former Baltimore Ravens assistant. Bobby Ingram is now the offensive coordinator. Paul Christ was the OC, even though they had others who were named the offensive coordinator in years past. Bobby Ingram has gotten, I think it'll be interesting to see what control he takes on the offense. It has to be an offense that's built on a powerful offensive line that graduates so many of their players to the NFL and the running game. But until Wisconsin finds its footing again in the throw game, of being able to be effective in the air, I don't know that they can take the next step that you're asking about joining the elites from the East. Now, the Big Ten West, Wisconsin has not owned it, but they've been the power broker in the West since they went to the divisional format. They've got some who are nipping at their heels there, and Minnesota is among. Iowa, certainly, they were the team a year ago. I don't think I can sell on Nebraska yet. So, but the bigger picture question that you asked, can Wisconsin take the next step? I've maintained for years that this is the step, that they're at the step. Mm-hmm. Wisconsin doesn't spend as much from a budget standpoint on football as some of the East powers do in the Big Ten. But the other issue for them is geographical. Ohio State gets so many in-state athletes, and if you're a 5-star in Ohio, you're going to Ohio State. Wisconsin doesn't get 5 stars. Just look at the recruiting analysis over the years. There aren't 5 stars coming to Wisconsin, and Ohio State 4 and 5 stars, is 4 and 5 times greater than that of Wisconsin. I think this is their step. They are highly competitive. They play at the highest level of the Big Ten, but I don't think unless the playoff expands that they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to have a shot at it every now and then, and every time they've had the shot, they've come up just a little bit short. And I think that's who they are, and I'm okay with that in the grand scheme of things. A lot of people want more, and I always wonder about them. Careful what you wish for. Because when you take the step to try and play at the next level, if you miss that step, you fall down, and it's hard to get back up after you've fallen down.
So, based on your comments about the passing game, is the jury very, very much out on Graham Mertz so far?
Yeah, they'll go as far as Graham Mertz allows them to go. And I think Graham Mertz has the talent to be a very good college football quarterback. Very good. Not good, very good. But you have to do it on Saturdays. And he has had a couple of Saturdays that he's done it, and mostly on those Saturdays, he's been okay. And a couple of them, he's been bad. But he wasn't recruited by Alabama and Ohio State and others to come into a program and not be great. Wisconsin got him because they were on him early, but he has not been the guy that everybody recruited and that Wisconsin got. And it's kind of who they need. They need him to be a great quarterback. They have a great ground game. Braylon Allen is as good a running back as there is in the country. And running behind that big beef-eating offensive line it's a joy for him. But Braylon Allen is going to play on Sundays. And they just need the quarterback position to be better.
Mike, this is not so much about the team. This is circling back to realignment. I was sitting here thinking about, I was seeing Wisconsin pictures, and I was imagining the L.A. trips that people will be excited about and all the other things that are going to come with the Big Ten eventually. What else do you think comes with the Big Ten ultimately? Do you see the stuff about potentially taking a look out west even further to find some more teams out of the Pac-12? Do you see that as all that realistic? Do you see perhaps looking east as something that Kevin Warren might try to do in the future? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I've been curious about this since we were all surprised and shocked at some level about USC and UCLA. So they get Los Angeles. Certainly the West Coast is still open for Cal and Stanford from the Pac-12, which gets you the San Francisco market. Remember, these are all about dollars, and it's all about TV revenues and big markets if you can get into the big markets. Now, the SEC is flown in the face of that because they have no big markets. The closest you get is New Orleans and Atlanta, and neither city specifically has an SEC team. They just have a following. Now, the Big Ten has been different. That was the Rutgers, Maryland move, right, was to get Rutgers, which is a 30-minute train ride to Manhattan, to get New York City cable to have the Big Ten network. It was to get that footprint. So you've got that in New York, you've got Chicago, and then you've got LA. So you got essentially the three biggest TV markets in the country. Could you add San Francisco? Could you add Seattle? Could you add Denver? Because those coincide, or Phoenix, those coincide with Cal Stanford, they coincide with Washington, they coincide with Colorado, and they coincide with Arizona or Arizona State. Those are interesting, but I would also just to keep in the loop, they would like another East. Would Boston College be a good fit? I know it would be from a lot of aspects. So I don't think they're done, and I don't think it is just a West Coast and let's peel off a couple more Pac-12. I think an ACC. I think in North Carolina is a possibility. They all have those media rights deals that go through 2034, which is an issue.
Yep.
But Boston College would be very lucrative for somebody to peel off, and I wouldn't put that by the Big Ten to find a way.
Mike, in your explanation or your answer there, were you surprised when USC and UCLA were added? Were you surprised that it did not also include Washington or Oregon?
Yeah, well, I don't know what I talked to some people in the know, and they said that it was USC and UCLA that came to the Big Ten, not the Big Ten going there. So when I fully understood that, and that it happened very quickly, is what I've been told, is then I wasn't as surprised that Oregon and Washington weren't part of it. But I certainly think that they're in the loop. They would have to be. You then take that whole Pacific Northwest corridor and you get the West Coast. I mean, other than San Francisco, unless you peeled off Cal or Stanford, you've got the West Coast. From a collegiate standpoint, they are now part of your entity. So, yeah, not surprised that they didn't go there because I don't think they went there. I think USC and UCLA came here, and then it happened very quickly. But certainly I would be surprised if Oregon and Washington weren't a significant part of the conversation.
Mike, we just want to ask one Packers question real quick. What's the bigger story coming out of the Packers camp, that they don't have any wide receivers for Aaron Rodgers, or that Aaron Rodgers has gone full Con Air with his look?
Yeah, that Cameron Poe look coming into camp was that was fantastic. Some people are inclined not to like Aaron, and I get that. So then they had a hard time with it. I thought it was funny, and I thought he pulled it off incredibly well.
Yeah, he did.
I just left Packers camp. I was there the last 2 days, on the first 2 days of camp. So I'm just south of Green Bay now. And I think the biggest story is Dave Bakhtiari, who we didn't know this until 2 days ago. He had another knee procedure sometime this spring. If their all-pro left tackle can't return to play at an all-pro level, then this team has some issues that maybe even Aaron can't fully overcome. I think worst case scenario is that this team is a playoff team, but that's not good enough in Aaron's final year or two in Green Bay. They have to be a Super Bowl contender, and maybe Aaron's best friend on the team is David Bakhtiari. And if Bakhtiari doesn't come back at somewhere near all-pro level, then there are more questions than there are answers on the Packers O-line. And the wide receiver question becomes moot if you don't have protection up front. And I think we've seen that around the league. For offensive lines that cannot protect their quarterback, they have problems.
He throws the most beautiful ball, man. I know that there have been frustrations,
right.
but he is. Did you see the Mike Sando article. I'm not
Yeah,
sure. The tears and all that. And,
the tears.
Yeah. He just throws the most beautiful ball.
And Aaron's number one in that tier, and I don't disagree with it. People will look at his playoff failures, and listen, there's a case to be made for his failures in January for the last 11 seasons, and I can't argue against it. I still think he is the best quarterback I've seen do his work in my lifetime, and that's a separate conversation from winning. I'm talking about the ball he throws that you're referring to, his presence in the pocket, the type of football he throws. It's beautiful to watch. He is a fantastic quarterback. Winning time in the playoffs has not been his best friend for 11 years.
Hey, Mike, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and have a great football season.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me jump on.
Eventually get to talk about games and wins and losses and matchups and stars and other things as well.
Braylon Allen's a star.
He is an
I know that
absolute